Hi there, Frontline Church family and friends. We are in 1 Corinthians 8 today, and it's about food sacrificed to idols. And of course, the context, these believers are in Corinth. They're saved out of a particular type of Greek temple worship. You can go to Corinth and see the ruins of the city to this day. I went in the summer with Mount Morgan. You walk up the mountain, and there is the overshadowing the city is the temple of Aphrodite, where the temple prostitutes were, where they would go to worship Aphrodite, Apollos, and the other pantheon of gods. And part of their act of worship was to eat food that had been sacrificed. A Greek sacrifice was typically split into 3. The first part was burn, and this sort of aroma and smoke going up to the heavens symbolised it being given to God, the gods. The second part of the offering was taken home for the person and the family to eat together as an act of worship and devotion to the gods. And the third part was given to the priests and priestesses. Only they often had far more than they needed. So these little, temple restaurants sprung up. And historians say that's where you went for a good, cheap meal. It was a bargain. It wasn't just us Yorkshire folk that liked a bargain meal. The Greeks in Corinth liked one too. So this was all around them. They had this strong emotional connection to food that had been sacrificed in the temple as an act of worship. An emotional connection, maybe a little bit like an ex-alcoholic saved going back into the old pub. It would have evoked emotion. And Paul's talking about how to live a Christian life, a distinctively Christian life in community within the freedom and grace of the gospel. And this passage is very similar to what we read in Romans 14, in 1 Corinthians 6. Paul is not saying, do this, don't do that, this is what the scriptures say, be obedient. Rather, he is outlining once again godly decision-making processes. And I'm so thankful that he's done that, because it helps us to apply scripture to new situations that we might face, that we have to make decisions about. And I use the example in Romans 14, I use the example of the COVID vaccination and how some Christians have disagreed over whether that's right or wrong. We can apply it to new situations. So just a few points of how Paul helps us to do that. Number 1, it is not about having all the right knowledge and learning. He talks about knowledge that puffs up. It's the image of imagine blowing into a bag to make you look bigger. Your decision making, your holy living that makes you look superior. He contrasts that with the decision making in love that builds up. It's a Greek word oikodomeo, which is the building up of a house. So when we're making decisions, it's not about whether it makes me look good or not and makes me look super spiritual, but rather what impact does it have on the community, on God's house, God's people together? Does it help to build us up together? Number 2, verse 2 and 3 contrasts knowledge, wisdom with intimacy. And so godly decision making for us as followers of Jesus, it's not about having the right information first and foremost. It's about right relationship. It's about pressing into the presence of God. It's about coming before him and worshipping him, and in that place of intimacy and love, just bringing our questions before him. Lord, what should I do about this? Would you lead me? Would you speak to me through your word into that situation? It's about intimacy. Number 3, Paul creates a foundation of decision making based on the nature of God, the character of God revealed through the Old Testament. He creates this binding background. This is who God is. Therefore, we make decisions in the light of that. And that's why we need to read scripture to see who God is, first and foremost. That is the whole point of scripture, a revelation of who God is. And then we apply that, how we live in the light of that, to modern contexts. Finally, verse 8, I think Paul's saying, in some ways it's irrelevant whether you eat, personally for you, if you eat food sacrificed to idols or not, or take a COVID vaccine or not. What is relevant is the impact your decision has on others. It's about community. It's about love. It's about not using our freedom to cause others to stumble. And it's such a powerful principle for today, isn't it? Yes, we are free. We live in grace. We live in the freedom of the gospel, but we live in a way that actually builds others up in love from the presence of God, rather than makes us look super spiritual or holy, or causes others to stumble. So let's live in that truth this day.